that the adventurism has cost India dearly. Let me go to Dr. Jamil Ahmed Khan, and then I'll come to you. Dr. Jamil, we know that we have agreed to a ceasefire at this time. As far as our position of strength is concerned, as far as what happens now on the 12th, in your opinion, in terms of our walking into this, we know that, of course, as far as the Indus Water Treaty is concerned, it was abrogated by India firstly, which is of course an act of war, followed by the insurgents, followed by the kind of terrorism that we've seen come from that side of the border. In the face of our fortitude, in the face of our constant, saying that India should exercise caution, we saw none of it. And then that we've seen the way Pakistan responded, the way that we put India in their place. In your opinion, with that background, now what happens on the 12th?
Well, on the 12th, the dialogue would start if we are talking about that tweet, and if there is conditions of the ceasefire, which has been agreed by both parties, by both countries, in which they have chosen just after 2 days, they are going to have, they're starting the dialogue between the two countries. And this time, they have included a broad-based issue dialogue, which means that it encompasses Kashmir issue, it encompasses the Indus Water Treaty, and the background of that is basically that first statement which was issued after the National Security Committee meeting, and that official statement, it really, and I have said it in many programs, that each line of that program, it fits in, and it is in accordance with the international legal framework, which means that the harshest word and sentence what we had used in that was that Indus Water Treaty, keeping its health in abeyance, stopping water by the upper riparian, which is India, would tantamount to be an act of war. So we already had said that. And most of the other points were the reciprocity. India did it first. The visa cancellation and asking the people to leave the country, scaling down the High Commission. So we just reciprocated those points. In addition, we had also closed our airspace for Indians to start with, and they also reciprocated. So those were the reciprocal things. But in this water treaty.
Let me come back to you on that note. I want to go to Ambassador. Ambassador, can you hear me?
Can hear you loud.
Ambassador, I know that you are the right person to ask this question from. Overall, in terms of the past, let's look at the past, because when the world starts asking questions, isn't it true that even in the past we've always asked them that we are willing to submit to inquiries, we are willing to submit to investigations, but the fact sharing, the cooperation has always ended on the Indian side and not Pakistan.
And this time around, because of this very intense diplomacy, intense adherence to the international law which Pakistan followed all along, and Pakistan has been also advocating that we would remain within the international legal framework, and the testimony of that is our first statement, which was issued by the National Security Committee. And each line of that, if we weigh under the international legal system, they all got covered within that UN Charter and all other customary and other covenants. They are fully covered. Now, once I say so, one of the examples and one of the harshest point which was made from the National Security Committee was that Indus Water Treaty any kind of stoppage of water would tantamount to a declaration of war, and that again is given. There are three laws, international law. There could be many, but I remember about three at this time, and Helsinki law, and also the United Nations Water Courses law, and more importantly, a binding law was the agreement between the two countries, and with a guarantee of with the World Bank as a guarantor. That is Indus Water.
You mentioned the World Bank, and I wanted to come to that. The question is that India itself, I mean, it didn't, of course, it violated the World Bank's guarantee also this time. So what do we expect in terms of when these talks happen, and who will be the guarantors in this agreement if it goes through?
Well, I'm coming on that. Basically the guarantor would be those who mediated, and also the international legal system would come and play. Now, your question that they have not really respected the international legal system, which is the agreement of Indus Water Treaty. Here are some of the arguments which I have that why they did that. There is a geopolitical reason, and there is another reason that India has been getting away by defying all the Security Council resolutions which was passed in relation to the Kashmir. There were 15 resolutions, including resolution number 47, which was passed in 1948. Why? How they could defy that? One, that it was passed under Chapter 6 of the United Nations, and that Chapter 6 does not have any implementing component in it. And two, that even then it was not only moral, but it was a legal burden on them to follow, on Indians to follow India's side, but they didn't do that. And I said that they tried to capitalize their geopolitical, particularly in last about 15-20 years, geopolitical situation. And what is that geopolitical situation? India basically has been strengthened in terms of its military, in terms of, but then this war has also proved that how much strength do they have, and the world has seen it. But let me continue with my argument that there were about 6 different agreements between India and the United States, because India is number one country and the strongest country so far as the string of alliance is concerned, which means the group of countries which is basically aligned with the United States, and the purpose of that is the containment of China, India, Japan, Australia, Philippines, and so on. So that is one part, because India would violate the universal laws, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the minorities' rights, their own constitution, and so much so that the Indian Religious Commission, Religious Freedom Commission, every year they've been mentioning what Hindutva is doing and what the RSS is doing. So basically, they've been defying it, they've been getting away because of one, that they thought that they are really growing, and they thought that they have their significance in the world stage. So now they have seen that significance, that pride which they had. Now with these 4 days war, with this 5th war with India and Pakistan, this time Pakistan agreed to all what an international normal legal demand or legal framework would demand. That is, Pakistan exposed itself for an investigation, for an inquiry by any third party.
Right. I want to come back and talk about when do you think the world will realize, when do you think that the world will respect Pakistan for the kind. I'm going to Ambassador Saab. Ambassador, I want to talk about, like I said, in terms of how the international media views us at this time, how the international world is looking at things at this time. Do you think that India, firstly, the true face of India has been sufficiently exposed, in your opinion?
Well, not only exposed but embarrassed this time, because if they start indicating that Lahore has been captured and there is a sea there, and Faisalabad and Karachi, and they've been attacked, and people are just running around. So whatever news they are given, it's their own embarrassment, and I think they have really cut a very sorry figure about it. That is one part, but that doesn't serve our purpose as much. Although they are exposed, and the world would now, think twice before believing them. And even last 4 days, the way they were mentioning the kind of drones which they were sending, and they were claiming about its success, and they were claiming that these drones had gone and destroyed all the infrastructures of the terrorist infrastructure. So they've been trying to propagate that, but it was rather, in our favor that they were exposed, and people, the world as a whole it would be very hard for them to believe them. But more important to me is that India, even if it is exposed, but they have to be exposed from the point of view that they defy all the international law. And in order to expose them, there are certain tools available, diplomatic tools available, and those diplomatic tools are the traditional diplomacy through which we can make the world conscious about how the world can realize that this was a fifth war and what were the basis of this war. The basic and fundamental reason for the war is Kashmir, and the Kashmir which India thought that it has been put on the back burner, now it has come to the fore. And even what negotiation or dialogue or a meeting which India and Pakistan is going to have on the 12th, now Marco Rubio has already mentioned that it's going to be a broad-based, issue-based discussion. So at least now they have realized that it's not a bilateral issue which India has been hiding behind the Shimla Agreement of 1972 and Lahore Declaration. Lahore Declaration doesn't have the legal strength in it, but Shimla Agreement, yes, it's an agreement, that's why it has its strength. So after Shimla Agreement, India did not go anywhere, and every time there was a Security Council resolution submitted, it was crushed, or it was vetoed, or it was not accepted because India went and pleaded its case that it's a bilateral issue. Now, India has accepted mediation of the United States, so it has become a multilateral issue because India was approached by Seven Eyes, India was approached by many other countries, and it is because of the multilateral diplomacy that India had to agree to it. So what I envisage now that the world knows that it's two nuclear neighbors, and if the fundamental problem is not resolved, then the world and the regional stability would always remain at the threshold. So this time along, I feel that even Security Council, in fact, Pakistan should go to the Security Council and say that we've been advocating for the investigation. And India now this time has really kept a provision before this ceasefire that next time if there is any terrorist act in India, obviously they are going to link it with Pakistan as they always do. So in that case, we will take it as a declaration of war. Means they want to say that any next terrorist act means the state action, not the non-state action, which means a ground to attack Pakistan. So this riff-raff would keep.
I don't want to, unfortunately we're running out of time, but do you think that we should also agitate for some kind of sanctions against India for violating the Indus Water Treaty?
That was the last point which I was making. Now we have to really move the matter, and this is the time we should move the matter under Chapter 7. And under Chapter 7, Article 39 onward, whatever is invoked, that would be a binding, that would be an implementing order, implementing resolution that they have to implement. And unless world considers that, and now the only country which used to veto most of the time was United States, and this time since they are mediating it, so I don't think they will they would veto it. And Pakistan should straightly go and ask that, okay, also form a permanent commission that India every time is alleging Pakistan. So form a permanent commission that any time that something happens, false flag operation, we say and they say no, it's Pakistan, then this standing commission should be able to really investigate, and that is under Article 34. So some of these things have to be really agitated. Some of these articles of the United Nations has to be invoked, and Pakistan has to really work for it at all levels, at the traditional level, diplomacy level, at the public diplomacy level, and at the legal diplomacy level, because unless we do that, probably it will be hard, and we will keep going into that circle of the fifth.
Thank you, Ambassador Sahab. I think that you've summed it up very aptly. Article 34 of the United Nations is something that we should definitely agitate for.